Buying a business is big, yes, but you do it one step at a time.
Hello, Quiet Wealth Nation. This is Della, your friendly neighborhood CPA, and I'm here to turn the table, so to speak, and put the spotlight right where it belongs on our own Camilla Jeffs. You already know Camilla. You already love Camilla, but guess what? She's been keeping a secret from you, and I'm here to help her spill the tea. Do you want to tell them, or can I?
All right, Della, why don't you go ahead and tell them?
All right. Well, Camilla has done the most fantastic thing. It's one of my favorite things to do and talk about. She has done one of the best things to skyrocket your wealth, secure your independence, and make an impact both now and for the future. Drum roll, please. Camilla has just recently purchased an existing business. We're going to hear all the juicy details right now. So tell us, Camilla, what business did you buy?
I bought a residential home remodeling company.
Ooh, that sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. It's located in Tampa, Florida, and the name of it is called Kohler House Remodeling Co. Super excited about this business.
Tampa, Florida, so you'll stay nice and warm too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Excellent.
Well, I get to go visit. I actually live in Dallas, so it's a business that I bought in another state, which has its own story to it. But I'm excited that I get to go visit Florida often now.
Okay, well, I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a little while now, but my favorite first question is always this. So, Camilla, were you born an entrepreneur or did that come to you later in life?
Born an entrepreneur? No, I don't know if anybody's born a certain way. I don't have the fixed mindset that says, oh, you're born and then this is what you're going to do for your life. I believe 100% in choice. I believe 100% in growth. I believe 100% in choosing and picking and becoming something different. But, I was not born in a family of entrepreneurs. None of my family that I know of. And I have a giant family. I have over 100 cousins. Cousins. Like we have a giant family.
That is giant.
I can't think of any of them that are entrepreneurs. Maybe there's one. Maybe there's one that was an entrepreneur. But everybody else is just, normal, everyday, like get your W-2, go to college, get a degree and get a W-2 job. And go for it. And so that's what I did too. I followed that path. I went to college, got a degree. Then I went and got another degree, got jobs and, and was building someone else's dreams. And then I got bored. And then I realized that working for another company was not going to make me millions of dollars. And so I had to do something different. And so I'm trying this different thing, right? Like becoming an entrepreneur. I dabbled with several different businesses here and there, but realized that I just love being in control. Being in control.
At least you admit it, right?
Right. I like to control things. What better control can you have than controlling your work too? So no, not born an entrepreneur. Definitely have crawled through all sorts of thorns and sticks and mud and stuff to get to where I am today, but it's all been worth it.
That's it. That's part of the ride, right? So your audience is probably pretty familiar with your background, but do you want to just refresh us a little bit and tell us what those couple of degrees that you mentioned were in and what maybe some of your most relevant jobs have been or maybe the most impactful jobs that you've had?
So first degree I got a bachelor's degree in English education with a minor in physical education, teaching.
Super relevant.
So not business. I thought I was going to be a high school teacher. And I did that for a couple of years till I got pregnant with my twin daughters. And I already had a daughter at the time. So I had a 3-year-old pregnant with twins. And my husband's job, we had the opportunity to relocate to Indiana, where you live.
Yay, Indiana.
So we relocated to Indiana. And so I stopped teaching and coaching. And in Indiana, I gave birth to twin daughters. And at that point in time, being a teacher was not going to cover the daycare bill for those. And so there really was no way for me to work outside of the home. And so I became the stay-home parent, caretaking for the children, right?
One of the biggest problems us women face these days.
Yep. it's a challenge for sure. I mean, it's one of those things that's like a challenge and a blessing at the same
Oh,
time. And you
exactly.
love it and you hate it at the same time. It's just like, there's no happy medium here. But yeah, so that it was a huge challenge, and my degree wasn't one that could really support. Like if I had a degree in computer science or something, I could go back to work and cover the daycare bills, but I did
Right.
not. And so then I was like, well, what do I do? And I started getting antsy, and my husband and I, we like to renovate houses, and so we started flipping houses, and that became my business. I stepped into that and I led in all aspects of that. My husband, he's very handy and he liked to do the hands-on stuff. Of course, I would do it too. I became the tiler. I can sheetrock, I can do trim work, all of that. I don't love it, but I can do it. So we were doing that as a business, and that became my business. And the other thing I also is that I got frustrated with the fact that I couldn't bring in income for the family, right? I was like, man, I'm just not contributing to the family finances. But you know what, Della? People who think like that, like I did, are completely wrong, because finance, and you know this because you're a CPA, there are so many aspects to finance and money and figuring it all out. Like the revenue is just the top line, revenue slash your income, right? That's just the top line. What happens all below that is really what's crucial to building wealth. And
Yes,
so
that's where the
that's what I
magic
realized.
happens.
Yes, right? And that's what I realized. I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna become the CFO of my family. Sure, my husband's out there, he's gonna bring in the top line, and I'm gonna manage all the rest of the lines and make sure that we come out ahead," right? Because it's so easy to not come out ahead if you don't really manage
Well,
that.
I love that analogy, and I love how you took control, as you're fond of doing anyhow, but, somebody has to do it, so why not you?
That's true, right? And I think more women definitely should be doing this. They should be digging into the finances of the family and managing more, because I think we're good at it. I think we're
Absolutely.
really good at it. Something we can do. So did all that. Now, fast forward like 10 years and two more kids later, and 10 years in, I have been running this investment business. I also launched a music education business.
Oh,
So I had a large studio where I taught piano and voice to children. I had employees, and you had this big studio. And I was just like, this doesn't feel all that I'm meant to be, right? It feels like I have a bigger calling and something more that's happening. And so I was trying to figure out what that more was. And I was like, well, maybe I need to work in the corporate world. Like I didn't want to go back to teaching. I mean, I tried to go back to teaching for a year in the elementary school, and I was like the music teacher for a
mm.
year. And those fifth graders were the death of me. I loved the second and first graders. They were so cute. They loved to sing, but the fifth
Yeah, they're
graders,
cute and eager still at that age.
yeah, man, but those fifth graders were just snarky and look at me like, I dare you to make me sing. And I'm like, okay, this is not fun. I was like, I got to do something different. And because I'd been managing our investments and, become the CFO, I knew that I was intelligent. I knew I had a business mind. And I was like, I'm going to go into the business world. And honestly, I was jealous of my husband being in the business world, and he'd go on business trips. And I was like, gosh, why can't I? Like, I want to do something like that. I want to be known as someone who's smart and intelligent. I was like, well, maybe I need to get a job. And so I started applying to corporate jobs, right? Corporate businessy jobs. Well, guess what? No one would hire me. 45 applications, 45
Oh,
applications, 10 interviews. It was a nightmare. No one would hire me. Most likely because I didn't have experience, because I had a huge gap in my resume. Like all of these challenges that women face when we're ready to get back in the workforce, right? If we take a
yep,
break from
that's
the
right.
workforce, we are punished. And I felt it, and it happened. And that was really frustrating. And so I was like, well, if no one's going to hire me because they can't see that I am a master organizer, I am really good with finances, I'm really good with planning, calendaring, organization, like all of these things to run 5 children. Like that takes a lot of organization, but they didn't care. I was like, well, maybe I need to get more education or something. Like I need a different degree. And so I started looking at like business degrees. And there was one that I was tempted to go get, but it was literally an associate's degree. It was like a business associate's degree in project management or something, because I was like, I'm a good project manager. I almost went for that. But then I was like, this feels so backwards. I already have a bachelor's degree. No one's going to hire me with this bachelor's degree. So am I going to go backwards and get an associate's degree and then think they're going to hire me and give me a salary? And I was only going for jobs that were paying like 30, 40,000. I wasn't trying to get 100, at a six-figure income.
Sure.
And so I was like, no, that's not going to work. I'm like, well, maybe, just maybe I could get my MBA. And this was something that was always in the back of my mind that I always wanted, but it was kind of one of those secret dreams because where I grew up, women were not encouraged to go after huge careers. It was this secret desire inside of me that I always knew I could be good in the business world, but I didn't want to go against the grain and do something that, people would look down upon. But finally I was like, you know what? I want to go for it. I want to get my MBA. And I find out you have to take the test, the GMAT. And I was like, oh no. I mean, I'm smart, right?
A test right off the bat.
This kind of math for a very long time. And so I had to go through and I had to take the GMAT. And the first time I took it, I failed. I got like a 500 something. You can't get into MBA school if you're in the 500s. It has to be in the 700s. I was so frustrated and upset. I'm like, okay. And I could have easily given up right then. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to try again. I'm just going to have to study harder. I'm just going to have to study harder. And I studied my brains out. And then the second time I took the test, I literally cried in the room because my test score came back in the 700s. I improved my score by.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's unheard of to happen, right? Like people say, oh, the first time you take it, that's pretty much what your score is going to be. But that's, again, fixed mindset, right?
Right.
No, I'm not. I don't accept that.
Maybe for you, mister, but not for us.
And so then in my MBA school, I loved it. I loved every class. I loved everything I was doing. Granted, I was like 15 years older than one of my classmates. So I'm like this old woman. I was 38, right? But you feel really old when everybody else is 24.
I had that same experience when I went back to become a CPA. I was short some accounting classes, so I had to go back and take a few more college credits. And, I'm telling these kids, like you just said, kids sitting next to me, I'm like, the first time I went to college, we didn't have the freaking internet. This is like all different.
That's right.
They're like, what? There was no internet?
It is what it is. I took 21 credits every semester.
Wow.
I was the only crazy that did that. All the 24-year-olds took the bare minimum to get by. But I had a fully different mindset. I was there to learn every single thing I could learn and absorb it. And I even audited classes, some extra classes, because I just wanted to learn it all.
And you still had all the children, right?
Grades. Oh, yeah. I still had 5 children. It was a huge sacrifice. Like, we didn't even live in the same city where I was attending school. Like, it didn't make sense for us to move the family there. I commuted 5.5 hours every single day. And I took the train so I could study on the train.
Mm-hmm.
I would get up at 4:15 in the morning. And I would go get on that train, and I was on that train for 2 hours to get to school. And then, another 2 hours to get home. It was a lot. The kids didn't see me much at all. They were used to seeing mom all the time. And then there was a change, definitely a shift in our family's life, but it all worked out. And then out of MBA school, I immediately landed a 6-figure job. And it was so easy to land a job, right?
Just because of those initials? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wanted. And I was like, this is bizarre because I don't feel like a completely different person than what I was 2 years ago. Sure, I have some education. I learned some things, but I didn't get straight A's. I got like B's, maybe some C's because grades weren't important to me. The learning of the information was important to me. And suddenly I land a 6-figure job. It's a cushy job. I get to move to a bunch of different states. I get to travel to India. I get to go on those business trips that I wanted to go on. And I felt like I was living the high life. I was like, this is it. I made it. I'm good in my MBA. And my MBA emphasis, I decided to emphasize in human resources as processes because I'm really good at process and at people. So I was working in HR. And then one year I got to work in compensation. And I was like, this is fascinating. The people want to come in and try to get a raise and we only give them 3%, and how hard they have to fight to get a raise. And just the way we fight them to not give them a raise because, we have budgets and stuff. We're like, well, you can't pay them whatever that you want to pay them because we have budgets. And that was fascinating to me. And then I started calculating So I landed a six-figure job, but what if I wanted multiple six figures? How long would that take? So I started calculating that out because I was privy to that information. Yeah, that was going to take 5 to 10 years. I was like, what the heck? That's going to take so long.
And they're going to be
And that,
fighting against giving you that raise.
yes, I know. And that's when I was like, this is not right. I thought there's got to be a different way. And that's when I kind of went back to, okay, I need to go back into entrepreneurship. I did study some entrepreneurships in my MBA courses as well, but nobody ever talked about entrepreneurship through acquisition. It was always like, oh, you got to come up with this brilliant idea. And so me and a friend, we came up with a brilliant idea. We were going to build an app that's going to help teenagers who were suffering from anxiety and depression. Really great idea.
Great cause.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it would be amazing to get something like that to the market and help. But the amount of effort to build something like that, the research, the time, the people, the developers, the money was enormous. It was too big. It was too big for me to try and do with what little resources I had. And so I was like, and then, also a couple years into my post MBA in my corporate job, one of my MBA friends posted in our little MBA group chat, hey, has anybody ever thought about buying a business rather than, starting one? And I was like, well, that's fascinating. So then I followed up with that friend and we started having conversations about it. And we started looking into business through acquisition, both of us. And we kind of were supporting each other on this journey. But then we both would get distracted by promotions. We get promotions at work. And then all of a sudden, like,
those pesky jobs get in the way sometimes, don't they?
I know. And you feel like you're moving up in the world. And then you realize that, okay, yeah, I got a little bit more money, but I also got a ton more responsibility. And now I don't have time to pursue these other things that are really going to be fulfilling. And so it's kind of all of those things. That's the whole story. And, I quit my MBA job. I launched an investing business, Steady Stream Investments, and that went well for a couple of years and then it didn't. And that one was built ground up, right? And then when it didn't, I was like, okay, this is the time. I need to buy a business that has been established for a really long time because we all know the stats. I can't remember what they are. Something like 90% of entrepreneurs fail, right?
Yes. Yep, that's absolutely true.
And so I was like, I don't want to be in that 90%, but maybe I am in that 90% because my business went well for 2 years and then it didn't go well for a year and now we're struggling. And so I'm like, you know what? I just want to buy something that's already established that the chances of it failing are significantly reduced. It's almost flip-flopped, right?
Yeah, exactly. 90% success rate for buying an existing business.
Right. And so the chances of failing are really low. And that's what I did.
Excellent. Well, let's dive into just what you did. So you bought a construction business or is it a remodeling?
Yeah. So it's in the construction industry and it's residential home remodeling. So when you look at business acquisitions, I started, buying all the books. You buy the Harvard Business Review, How to Buy a Small Business.
I've got that one.
Like trying to walk you through what it is. But really the best advice that I found from my research and from other people was buy something that you already know and love and are passionate about. Our family has flipped houses with our kids, and we've done about 10 or 15 different projects. So we know some things about home remodeling, about residential home remodeling. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I know real estate well, so maybe I'll look for something in the real estate lane. What are all the businesses surrounding real estate that support it that are kind of boring, that could be considered old-fashioned, that might be owned by a baby boomer who is getting ready to retire. They've had the business for 15, 20 years. They've built it really well.
And there's millions of them. The silver tsunami.
Yep. So, and it works really well and is something that I can just come in and maybe I can just upgrade the processes. Maybe I could give them a website and then we get a little bit more business, right? Like nothing earth shattering. I don't have to come up with this amazing tech idea that's going to, make me millions of dollars. I can literally buy someone else's business and improve it a little bit or improve it a lot And that's going to make me millions. That's what I was looking for. So things like HVAC, right? So everybody needs heating and plumbing. So I was also looking for something that everyone needs. Plumbing, there's electricians, there's landscaping businesses. There's lots of different businesses like that all are around the real estate lane. And so then I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to look for. So that's what I started looking for. Now, there's lots of ways to find those businesses, and some of them are just you call owners and you talk to them and just, introduce yourself as someone who wants to buy a business.
Yeah, that's actually my next question. How did you find this one?
Yeah, well, and that's one way to do it. That felt really bold, and my introvert self didn't like that. I was like, well, that feels nerve-wracking. I think a better way is just to go start networking in, small business networking groups and get to know people. And then there's the third way, right? Using a business broker. And a business broker, so if you're familiar with real estate, I know a lot of my audience are, it's very similar to like a realtor or a commercial broker, right? It's the salesperson who helps the seller find a buyer and puts the transaction together and helps them like live happily ever after, whatever. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I might want to work with a business broker, but I was scared of them because I never, worked with them before. So I was scared of like just calling one up and being like, hey, I want to buy a business, because I knew they'd pepper me with 100 questions and I wouldn't be able to answer those questions. So I didn't know exactly what I wanted. So then I was at a real estate networking event in Florida, in Orlando. And one of my friends there introduced me to a woman, and he thought she would be a good fit to come and invest with Steady Stream Investments. And so I started talking to her about that. And of course, when I talk to investors, I ask them, what's your job? Like, what do you do to make income, to bring money in? She said, well, I'm a business broker. I was like, oh, you are? Okay. Well,
now you have your in.
Let's talk about that. And so we talked about it. I told her I'm interested in buying a business. Literally a month later, she brought me this home remodeling business that was for sale. It was a female GC, a female business owner in the construction industry who'd owned it for 15 years, had built it up. She was 65 years old. She's ready to retire. And she wanted to sell her business so she could, go buy a plot of land and build her dream house. So I flew to Florida again, met her, and just hit it off. Absolutely loved her and the business that she had built. And I was like, yep, I want to buy your business for sure. And so that's kind of how we got connected. Now, to get to the actual closing table was so hard.
Oh, I imagine. Finding one can be the easy part, although it's not easy, but sometimes it makes it seem easy. But is this seriously the only business that you really looked at genuinely to buy, and you bought the first business you looked at?
So the first one I looked at was actually a mini donkey halter making business.
Okay.
I know. And it was one I found in a networking group. So I joined some networking groups of people who were interested in buying businesses. I got connected with Cody Sanchez, who's so amazing.
Sure. I think we talked about her the other day.
And yes, we did, like when you were on my podcast. So yeah, I got connected with her and her community and got to know people within that community. And one of the ladies there, actually at first she was saying she wanted to sell her venue property in Arkansas. And so I went to
And then it turned into donkeys.
And she also had like mini donkeys at this venue place. And she raced them, and she had like built this mini donkey
empire
company. It was so funny because she was like,
I missed her. You'll have to share her name with me off the air if you want, because I missed that.
I think she ended up selling it to someone else, but I'm glad it worked out for her, because that was the first one that I looked at. But then after that, I mean, I talked to a couple of other people, just networking, trying to find businesses to buy here in the Dallas area where I live. And nothing was really working out. So this home remodeling business was probably the second business I went in depth on to determine if I really wanted to buy it or not.
So I assume that you did not submit any letters of intent or those first initial offers on any other businesses. Was this construction remodeling company the only LOI that you submitted?
Yep, that was the only LOI.
Nice. And was it accepted on your first submission, or did you guys go back and forth a few times?
It was accepted. Well, we did a lot of back and forth on the phone. The LOI, when it was actually submitted, we had already negotiated. And then the LOI was just kind of the, okay, let's agree on paper to what we already agreed to verbally.
Okay, well, just for everyone's reference, Camilla is the exception to all of the rules of business buying. So I think I just posted something the other day where the last half a dozen or so business buyers I interviewed, some of them looked at even 200 companies and submitted 15 to 20 LOIs before they got an acceptance. So you are the star of the day. Absolutely.
I wouldn't say I'm the star, right? But well, I
You
definitely
can
did
call
it
it luck or you can
different.
call it serendipity or whatever, but you're on it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how closely did the deal that you closed on come to what you two had submitted in the LOI?
It was exactly what we had done.
Perfect.
Well, there was one minor change at the end, but in terms of like what, so we had negotiated for her to stay on.
Mhm.
The only minor change was we increased her salary a little bit.
Oh, so it worked out well for her then.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the deal specifics then. Are you able to share the most recent annual profit of this business?
Yeah. So the annual revenue was around 1.5 million.
All right, so what kind of a deal did you guys come up with, or how did you finance this particular acquisition?
Yep. I used an SBA loan. So we went through the SBA, and that's what was so difficult.
I was going to ask you, tell us about the whole process. Did you love it? Did you hate it? And would you do it again?
Oh, I hated the whole process. So let me tell you why. I mean, one of the biggest challenges was that I live in Dallas and the business is located in Tampa, Florida, right?
It was
And
probably challenging to convince them to loan you the money when you're not only
exactly,
not on site, but not even in state.
that was their biggest hang up. Now, the business broker at the time, she was under the impression that it wasn't a problem, that it would be okay. And because I had plans and we spelled it out, I'm going to be there once a month. I'm going to plan to spend 1 week a month in Florida working with the team. But really, what I'm doing is, I'm managing all of the finances. I'm calling clients, like all the back office work that doesn't have to be done on site. I'm not coming in as the owner to go and actually fix the houses and, knock down the walls, although I do like demo. I'm coming in as the CEO, right? As the president, as the strategic person in here. And all of that can be done from the comfort of my own home in my office, right? Now, it's good for me to get out there and meet people in person, meet vendors in person, meet clients in person, but that can be done once a month. As I explained it to her and I worked with her, it felt like, okay, yeah, this will be fine. So we tried the first lender and they said, no, that's not fine. We tried another lender. They said, no, that's not fine. We tried another lender. They said, oh, yeah, that's fine. And then we go through the entire process and get to the end a week before closing. And they're like, no, that's not fine. And we're like, what? So we do another lender who assures us he can get it done and he can push it through. He goes through and tries to push it through. Again, 2 months later, go through the entire process, come back, and they're like, nope, you can't do that. That was the final straw for me. So this was about 10 months in after we'd got it under LOI. My LOI had expired long, long ago, but we were both committed to this deal and committed to making it work. And the lenders, we just kept getting, oh, yeah, we can do it. Oh, yeah, we can do it. And then all of a sudden, no, they can't do it. So after that final one, 10 months in, I said, okay, I either have two choices right now. I'm not going to try this again with another lender. I either have to pull out, or three choices, I guess. I either have to move to Tampa, which is very difficult to do with a family, or I pull out of the deal. Or what if I found a boots on the ground partner and brought them in? Could that satisfy the SBA's requirement for someone being on site? We had to go through that whole process and work with the SBA and the lenders. And they came back and said, yes, that would work as long as she is at least 20% owner in the business. That will work, and signs on the loan and is a guarantor. So then I had to go find a partner. Luckily enough, I already knew several women in Tampa that I respected and loved and would probably be okay partnering with. And so I approached one of them and just proposed to her, would you be willing to be the partner? Would you be interested in partnering with me? She was so excited. She's like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I've been praying for. I've been needing something different, in my life right now. And I would absolutely love to partner with you. So then,
Wow.
if you bring on a partner, you've got to go through all of the negotiations with the partner and you have to make sure the partner is
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with the deal. Partner is comfortable with the financials. And so they need time to review them. And she had her own lawyer that she wanted to bring in. And I was like, great, bring your lawyer in, have them review everything and give you legal counsel. And so there was a lot of stuff to be done once you bring a partner in because she's not coming in with a full year of knowledge like I am. And so
Sure.
she's coming in. And so we have to give her time to feel comfortable with the deal. That took another 3-4-ish months before we finally pushed through. And then just the SBA process, I mean, they want your left pinky finger, like every little thing,
And
like
all of your
every
real
day.
estate too.
Oh, yeah. Every day there was something that they come back and be like, well, I need this document. Oh, this is not good enough. Or, and it was I just felt like I was in this storm, this barrage of trying to get this thing closed.
So I have a few questions about this process. So you've mentioned networking a couple of times, and I can just tell from the way you're talking that some of it was in person and some of it was online, correct? And then is it just your general networking prowess that led you to know a handful of people in Tampa that made your, quick short list of potential partners? Or how did you know people, so far from home that you would be willing to partner with on a business?
I laugh because you're like, your networking prowess. I honestly feel like I'm really bad at networking. And networking,
I think this is
again,
proof that you're not.
I mentioned that I'm an introvert, right? And so networking
A
to
liar
me
too,
is
maybe?
almost like no, no. Networking is almost like a swear word, like makes me want to throw up a little bit like, ugh,
Ooh.
networking. However, what I've learned is the power of people, right? So the power of knowing people and getting to know people. Like I spent the first 15 years of my adult life doing things on my own where I literally felt like I was the only woman in the room doing any kind of real
Been there,
estate
done that. Yep.
investing. And I later learned once I stepped out, and the very first thing I attended ever networking was a women's real estate investing meetup that I forced myself to go to. I almost didn't get out of my car when I drove into the parking lot. I almost didn't go up the elevator and turn back around. Like it was so hard for me to just walk into that room.
Sometimes it's baby steps. You got to just keep making those baby steps.
I know. And the funny thing is, I got in that room and there's only about 20 women in there. And it was such a powerful experience to me because, the leader had everybody go around and share what they've done in real estate. Della, I was the most experienced person in the room. And I was like, how is this possible? Because I didn't feel like I had that much experience. I felt like I was this little tiny person just doing my own thing and just not doing what I'm doing. But I'm the most experienced in the room. That was powerful to me just to realize that, okay, you got to get out. You got to get out of boxing yourself in and get to know people. And by focusing on really what I did is focus on women investment groups. That's how I got to know people from all over the US. That little meetup group that was going on within like 4 months, the leader needed to step down and needed someone else to lead it. And I raised my hand and said, okay, I'll lead this group, right? So I said yes to that. That led to connecting with a larger national group called the Real Estate Invest Her group. That national group, they have meetups all over the nation. And so they adopted my little meetup into their group.
Ooh.
They learned what I'd been doing, and then they invited me to be a teacher for them, to teach classes.
So the English degree teaching did come into play. Full circle. There you go.
And then that morphed into them opening doors for me to speak on stages at conferences. That morphed into joining other accountability groups that were online accountability groups. And so really the woman I met, the woman who's my partner today in Kohler House Remodeling Co. is a woman who was part of my accountability group for 2 years. And we had been every Friday, we'd show up, no, Thursday, Friday, one of those days, we'd show up and report on what we've been working on for the week and what we're going to commit to doing for the next week, right? We held each other accountable. We also listened to each other when we had rough weeks, right? Someone lost their mom. We'd listen. We held space. for each other. And so that's how you say yes to little things along the way. I said yes to leading that group. I said yes to teaching a class. I said yes to speaking on a stage. I said yes to joining this accountability group. And all of those little things that you do will lead you to the big thing that's coming in your life.
And I think I know the answer to this, Camilla, but were any of those yeses, especially the first few, were they scary to give that yes?
Oh, 100%.
Exactly. But you did it anyhow, right?
Yeah, I did it anyway because I knew I needed to grow in that way. The other thing, someone called me out, my little introvert self, and they were like, Camilla, you have so much knowledge and so much to share, and you're being selfish keeping it all to yourself. I was like, oh, what? I'm not a selfish person. I'm not I don't want to be selfish. And now I have a podcast.
Another yes, right? Another check in the yes column. Okay, so I have another question about that lengthy SBA process, especially in the times that we're having this conversation. Interest rates have changed dramatically. You said this took a year or so, probably a little bit longer than that. And I think you've closed on the business pretty recently. So I'm trying to get a time perspective here, but did interest rates change a lot during that time that you were looking through the SBA loans? And how did that impact your deal?
100% they changed. Now, SBA loans, what you have to realize is that SBA loans are not fixed. There's no fixed option. They are always variable. And so the SBA loans, they vary based on the rate. It's going to go up and down, and it's just a risk we have to manage. So the way I think about it is, okay, if I would have closed on it a year ago, the interest rate would have been lower. Yeah, to start off with, of course, but then it would have gone up because it's variable. But the way I think about it is that it's a line item on my financials. And can the business support it today? Yeah, it can support it today. I mean, the interest rate's like 11%. It's really high today, but the financials can support it. And I have 100% confidence in myself to be able to grow this business. And so the growth is just going to put more and more distance between what that payment is because interest rates are not going to keep going up like crazy anymore.
I think honestly, we were spoiled for too long with those super low rates. I mean, because if ask any of your parents or your grandparents, they bought all the stuff back in the day with all the high interest rates and they still managed.
Right. And my parents bought a home in the 80s and it was 13% interest and it was fine. Like we're all fine. Yeah. It was definitely like we were living in this fairy tale world of 2-3% interest. I invested all through 2000 and my interest rates were 8%. Wasn't a big deal. It's still not a big deal today, right? It's just a number and you have to make sure all the numbers work together. And if one number goes higher, then you got to make a different number go lower and then it works. I don't get scared by interest rates, really.
So you mentioned that the process was pretty brutal getting an SBA loan. Will your next business purchase be funded by an SBA loan or will you avoid that at all costs?
I hope not. I think the next business purchase, and we did explore seller finance options and work through that, but that's not something that the seller was really willing to do. And that's okay. I respect her choice. One of the things I learned in MBA school is I took a negotiations class, right? I took several negotiations classes because I was interested in it. So again, that was some of my extra credits. It was fascinating because I found out I was really good at negotiating. It came naturally to me, whereas I thought it wouldn't because I'm not a cutthroat person. And I thought that negotiations was an aggressive thing. But the fact that my nature is not aggressive had served me really well in that class. And then later on in all of the businesses that we get to, right? So, because the most important thing is I've got to get away from a number. Purchase price is not the most important thing to anybody, not the buyer, not the seller, nobody, right? What is the most important thing to each party? And so you kind of like peel back those layers to get down to what exactly is the most important thing for them and then offer a solution. And so that's what we did, right? But going forward, what's fascinating to me is that now that I've bought this business and been through this process, I feel like the next business acquisition, which I definitely have plans to do more of, will be much more easy and natural. This first one was like learning to cook for the first time and you don't realize the pan is hot when you turn it on and you burn yourself and you're like, well, not going to do that again, right? Or learning to curl your hair for the first time. You get marks on your eyebrow, your forehead. It's just an awkward process because you don't know how to hold your hands. You don't know the right way. You don't know the right tool to use, and you might be using the wrong tool. But once you get used to it and you get it, suddenly you can curl your hair in 5 minutes and you're done. And so
everything's hard the first time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this morning, and I just asked you about those first yeses. Were they hard to say yes? And you agreed that they were. But I thought about it, really the hardest thing to do is not to say yes that first time because you don't know what you're getting into. But I think it's hard to say yes the second and the third time after you burnt your forehead the first and second times, but you're willing to try again. I think that's true bravery.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Really, why would you go through that again? Why would you burn your forehead again or have the chance of burning your forehead
Yeah.
again? It's because you want the end result so badly. And I think you've got to keep that in mind. You have to want the end result so badly to be able to go through the hard so that you can have what you want in the end.
Yeah. So you mentioned seller financing. Was there any component of seller financing to this deal?
Not in this deal, but I will be looking for that in future deals. In terms of the future of this business, yeah, I'm going to grow the nuclear business and I want to add on more acquisitions to build a bigger business, looking at that. But those conversations are now happening naturally. Like the house that we're flipping here in Dallas, the GC comes and we have a conversation with him. Hey, we need you to do this part, this part, this part. We'll handle all of these parts. He's like, okay, I'll give you a quote for that. And then the next time he comes, he's a little bit late to show up. It's fine. I have grace for stuff like that. He shows up and he's apologizing profusely. I'm so sorry. I'm so tired. And there's just so much going on. And I'm just ready to retire. There's so much going on. So guess what I said?
Ding, ding, ding.
Have you ever thought about selling your business? And he stops flat in his tracks, pauses, looks at me like, that's not a half bad idea. Because a lot of these people don't even know they can sell their business. Once the business gets to the actual business broker with the listing, in the real estate world, we consider that an on-market property. That's not the best deal. Best deal you're going to get is somebody off-market. Now, these conversations are happening much more naturally for me. The fact that I have purchased a business before, I know the terminology. I know how to talk about it. I know what I'm getting into. Whereas before I was just scared out of my mind. And every time the bank would come back and say, well, I need this document, I'd have to Google the word that they said because I'm like, I don't know what they're asking for, right?
LOI, what is that supposed to be?
Yeah, exactly. What's an LOI? A letter of intent. Okay, well, what does it look like? What do you have to put in there? All of these things. There's a lot that you go through. But the cool thing is you learn as you go. I didn't know everything before I bought a business. And I don't think you need to know everything either.
I mean, nobody knows everything the first time. I mean, I practically accidentally bought my first business. I bought the place that I worked for.
Yeah, I know. Your story's so cool. And if you're just listening to this for the first time to our listener, we interview Della is the interview. I think it's the one right before this episode coming out, right around this episode. So you can hear her story too.
So I'm just curious, a couple more questions about the deal itself. Was this an asset sale or a stock sale?
This was an asset sale. For the listener, what's the difference, right? So an asset sale means you are buying all the assets of the business. What did I buy of the business? Well, they have work trucks. They have equipment like drills and saws and tools and all of that. And then they also have this thing called goodwill. And goodwill means the brand, the name, the company itself, and how they've been able to get clients and all of that. That's some of the assets. Sometimes there's real estate involved in an asset sale. There is computer equipment that came with my asset sale as well. So some technology, things like that.
Was there were there real estate involved in this one?
There's no real estate involved in this one, no. A stock sale, on the other hand, is where you basically purchase stock in the business and then you take over like that. The entity remains exactly the same and then it comes over. I think, Della, in your experience, I guess what I've been told is that most are asset sales. Most acquisitions.
Yeah, in the States, absolutely. Most business transactions are asset sales. If you step out of the States, they're mostly stock sales, which is kind of an interesting perspective. I work with a lot of people in the UK as well, and they're mostly stock transactions over there. But yeah, in the States, it's almost all asset sales, but there's a lot of tax implications for both sides, for both the buyer and the seller. So I know this isn't a lesson necessarily on buying businesses, but if you're in the market, you really need to look into stock sale versus asset sale and do some tax planning prior to your acquisition, or if you're on the other side, prior to actually selling your business, because that'll have a huge impact, like I said, for both sides of the deal. So my last official question for you here as we kind of wrap things up and you can take your show back. But I know, your mission is to give away $1 million. And so I'm curious, how does this business acquisition fall into, or what role does it play in that overall bigger plan?
How do you give away $1 million if you don't have $1 million? You can't, right? How do you give away $1 million if you only have $1 million? Well, that's not smart either.
Probably not good either.
Right? In order to be able to be in a position to give $1 million, I have to build enough wealth to be able to do that. Now, the plan is all along the way to continue giving. So it's not like I'm just going to wait till I have millions and millions of dollars and then give. The plan is to do this all along the way. And so for me, that's 10% of gross profit from the business will also be donated. I'm super excited because I'm going to get involved with the Tampa community as much as I can remotely, but I want to identify kind of smaller nonprofits to support or smaller impact investments to support and just start supporting those in smaller ways as I generate enough money to be able to give $1 million. So yeah, this business is absolutely crucial to that plan. If I want to be able to give $1 million, I've got to have a business behind me that's generating the income to be able to give.
And I would say, watch out, Tampa, because Camilla is on the scene.
Oh, I have so many exciting ideas. And, the other idea I have here too is also supporting other women in the construction industry. With all of my experience in real estate investing and now really getting into the construction industry, I want to meet more female GCs. I want to get to know the women who are really rocking this industry because they're such a minority. We are such a minority here, and I want to support those women. And so I have lots of ideas on how that can happen. So my business partner's in Tampa, and so she's like making the rounds too. And so,
Is she a GC though?
She's not. She's not.
Oh, interesting.
So we need to hire a new GC to replace the owner, because one of the negotiations we did, and this is a tip that I got too, is that keep the owner on for 6 to 12 months so they can help with the transition.
Mm-hmm.
And so we absolutely had to, because she has her GC license.
Right.
And so the business needs a new GC, but we're already interviewing and working on finding a new GC to come and take her place.
Do you plan on that person being a woman as well, or is that not necessary at this point?
I would love for that to be a woman. But we have plans to scale and grow. So I think having a female GC on staff is really important to me. And then if we have a second GC, I'm okay with that being man or some kind of diversity. But diversity is really important to me in the way I grow my company. And so I want to make sure that I'm honoring that value as I continue to grow.
Well, this has been a super fun conversation for me. Yeah, thank you so much for letting me ask all these questions and dive into the deal with you here today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was so good. Thanks, Della, for offering to interview me on my own podcast.
I was like, well, I've got an idea for you. I don't know if you'll like it or not, but
no, I love it. It's been so fun and freeing and great to just talk about how it is. And so, to our listener, I have an ask. One of my asks is, if you know a female GC, will you please connect me with her? I would love to talk to her. And then for you, in terms of being inspirational, buying a business is big, yes, but you do it one step at a time. And reach out to me anytime. I would be happy to talk to you about it. I've already had several people reach out, had really fun conversations. So please do so. I would be honored to be just a small part of your journey to buying your own business, to creating your wealth. Remember, here at Quiet Wealth, we talk about 3 things. We talk about having a business, we talk about investing, and we talk about giving and all of that comes with it. You need a business, and it's much easier to acquire one than it is to start one.
The best way into entrepreneurship is to buy an existing business, because I'm on a mission to help create 10,000 female acquisition entrepreneurs. So I'm all about it.
I love it. Della, you and me, let's do this thing. Let's get these women
Absolutely.
out there buying businesses, and I'm happy to help inspire whomever I can. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining here at Quiet Wealth. We appreciate you being here. Remember, please share this episode with a friend that you know and love. Thanks so much. Bye for now. I want to give a quick shout out to my podcast manager, Abby. If you're in need of help in launching and managing your own show, please reach out to her at productions@abbygwaki.com. I'll put her details in the show notes. She really is the best, and I love her.